Well, welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a good opportunity to just kind of start grounding ourselves on the coaching aspect of our work. Anybody wants to share? Anybody wants to share? I'm not. I promised my group I wasn't calling on anyone in particular, but if anything surfaced in your group, I'd love to hear at least from three people. So I'm going. We're gonna wait until we hear three. Um, but just three folks. Anything come up, anything that was shared in the group that makes sense about what the work is and how it relates to your role? Three folks. I'm a good waiter. I don't mind dead
Mm.
silence.
I can
Well,
go.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Okay,
Hi.
we got.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can't see you though. Wait, what? Can you tell me your name? Oh, there you go.
Hi, this is Ramona. Can you hear me?
Yep, I
Yes.
can hear you.
Okay. So in our group, we were talking about the second quote and how important relationships are to the work that we do. There has to be a sense of trust. Teachers need to trust us in order to allow us to help them in this process. And that's something that takes time to build. And it's interesting because I have like two new schools this year. And initially, I thought that, building relationships was going to be challenging
Right.
virtually, but it's working out fine. But this is something that we have to spend time in. It's something that cannot be rushed, and then you're just thinking that you're just going to go there and make changes. This is something that is gradual. It takes two people to be in agreement, and so it's important to do.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ramona. I think I heard a male voice who wanted to say something.
okay, yes, it was probably me.
Greg, was that you?
Yes, that was I, Greg. Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Mic
can.
check, mic.
You can choose either one of those questions.
I can choose. Um, well, the ideas that surface and questions. Um, well,
Mhm.
I personally chose the one I don't have in front of me, but it was about um taking the person's strengths and building on their own strengths because too often
Mhm.
I think we go in with we need to strengthen this and build this, but sometimes
Mhm.
you can only strengthen the person to their capacity to be strengthened. That's
Mhm.
just the way it is. So if you aren't going
Mhm.
into it trying to enhance their already skills and trying to just impose your
Mhm.
own skills, then you're going about it the wrong way.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. We are enhancing what we already see,
Yes.
right? That helps us, right? If we go in with that mindset, it'll move us a little bit further. It may build that relationship that Ramona was talking about also,
Hmm.
showing that there's trust there and we're identifying that. One last person.
I could go.
Thank you.
Hi. So I had shared in the group that I felt that the first quote kind of resonated with me. Seeing myself as that travel agent that helps teachers get to their destination. And it came up in the group with another member that as they expounded on that, that yes, like a travel agent, when you're telling about like restaurants in various cities or whatever, they may say, yeah, that was a good restaurant, but this is a better restaurant, and even with your
Mhm.
ideas in coaching, you may have a good idea and the teacher may receive it, but as other teachers are being coached, then teachers develop ideas and learn about even more ideas. So, and all
Mhm.
because of the travel agent who's helping them get to their
Mhm.
destinations.
Nice, nice. Thank you for that metaphor. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, good. I think that was a nice, rich conversation that you all had, and I think that my understanding is the coaching aspect of your work is an added role, and that is like a new layer. I mean, maybe many of you have engaged in your work in this way before, but I think the idea is that we really hone in and match our coaching role with our PERT responsibilities. And so we're going to be using powerful interactions as the principles that help us, and the principles that continue to support us. And Carissa has put in the chat some other pieces that showed up, that relationships are key, building on teacher strength. Oh, she's just kind of organizing our thinking in the chat. So if people want to follow along there. One of the things that we will do, and I wasn't able to send you the book before the holidays, but we will make sure you get a copy of the book, so that we'll be using the book as our like study guide, or the way that we can kind of help support ourselves. So that'll be our mentor text. And I know that you've gotten chapters copied and things like that, and we'll also be sharing those things. So what we're gonna do, and we're just going to spend a few minutes doing it, is we're going to look at the 5 principles of powerful interactions. And we've already started talking about the strengths-based perspective. And I want you to spend about 3 to 4 minutes on your own reading. And there's a handout that we sent you. We sent it to you previously, but I'm sure we can chat it to you also. It's a 1-pager. And it just basically says 5 principles guide the powerful interactions coaching stance. So we'll chat it to you if you don't have those handouts open from when we sent it. And really what I'd like for you to do really is to just spend some time reviewing the principles, and then which one, again, represents the strength that you see in your practice, right? We're all on this journey ourselves as we are helping teachers, and some of us have more strengths in one of these areas than other. Over our 5 sessions, we will delve into all of these, but where you currently stand, I want you to identify for yourself where you feel the strength is. So the first thing we're going to ask you to do is, Jared, did you chat it to them? And I'm saying Jared, it could be Carissa, I apologize.
Carissa just chatted.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Thank you so much. Sorry, Carissa. So there's a link in the chat. And you can also turn off your screen. So I just want you to spend 3 to 5 minutes just reading over that list, highlighting where you feel your personal strength is. And then we're going to come back together and have a little conversation around it. I know that you're probably going to get put in groups again, but I don't want you to go into the groups first. I want you to spend the 3 minutes with us as a whole group, and then you'll get placed into a breakout room. Does that make sense? Because I feel like I'm babbling. I'm sorry. It's like I'm saying it and saying it again. All right, so we're going to spend 3 minutes. I'm going to put the timer on. You're going to take a look at the handout holistically, and then on your screen, you're going to see, please join the breakout room, and you'll spend about 5 minutes in that breakout room just talking about that strength and where you are.
Welcome back. Everyone's just slowly exiting their rooms.
I felt like I needed more time. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. We're back?
Yeah, it seems like we're back. Did each person get to share in their group? Can you give me, use your reactions with the thumbs up? Let me know if you each at least had an opportunity to share within your group. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Were there any, I'm gonna use the word patterns, but I'm not quite sure that's really what I'm looking for. Were there any trends or similarities in the areas that you all felt that you had strengths in? Anything show up around your strengths? Lillian, I love that birthday sign. Would you be willing to unmute and tell me what that was? Like what you all talked about that felt like it was a trend? Thank you.
I'm sorry, it's just that we had some things in common. We mentioned both that we found challenging individualizing supports, the
Mhm.
development of respectful relationships. So I found that that was validating.
Mhm.
You know, especially because our expertise is in, psychology, and, we're going in coaching teachers,
Yeah.
and, that's their expertise. So we kind of commiserated about that.
Sure. Good.
So
Thank you
it
for
was
that.
validating. Okay.
No, that's great. Anybody find commonalities in the strengths? Okay. How about commonalities in the challenges?
Hi, this is Jen. I think a few of us talked about I'm trying to get back to, it's really hard to figure out this screen. We're talking about the modeling, how that just happens to be one of our weaknesses, I guess, only because of the time constraints, and we're not in class modeling, we're just modeling over the phone, and the teachers, the time the teachers have to do the work is limited, and if a situation, if we come back to observe that teacher, it really has to be planned for, because it may not just come up naturally or organically, right? It has to be kind of planned. So I think just the modeling piece, although I know one of the ladies in our group was thinking differently about it, not specifically that modeling of, with the teacher at that time, but just in general, the support we're giving. So that was just one of the challenges that we found.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. The modeling also in the virtual world also offers another challenge, just because we're in a virtual world. But I do think there are some tools and some additional capabilities that we can do online that we weren't able to do before. And so when we tackle modeling, I think we will challenge ourselves to try some things out, like tape ourselves doing an example of something that we could then share with a teacher. So that'll be something that, and I'm just saying that without telling my team that, oh, that's an idea that I just got. But I think there's some things that we can try out, that we can try with each other before we actually try with teachers, because they may not have, not that you all have the time either, but at least the things that we want to put in front of them, we can use each other as, how does this sound? Does that make sense? Let me try it out with you. Let me say it to you. Because sometimes you actually have to practice it out loud. You have to say, well, I want to say this to the person. Let me see how that's going to land. How are you hearing me when I say that? So I do think the modeling can be, it can be challenging, to be honest. One of the things that I did hear in one of our rooms is that there's probably a need for us to talk more about the reflective cycle. I know that our work is really about the coaching end, but the coaching and the reflective cycle, they go hand in hand. So we will, I'll talk to Marshall and we'll figure out how we integrate those conversations so that this feels meaningful, because you're going to be learning coaching skills and they live within the reflective cycle. And so if you're not comfortable with the reflective cycle, you're not really going to know what to do with these other tools, right? They're just going to kind of be like just more stuff, right? So we want to make sure that it feels like I can use this stuff in a way that's meaningful. All right, Jarrett. This is a pretty long quote. I'm not going to read it to you. Jack, can you make it a little bit bigger? If not, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. What I want you to recognize is, as you read this quote to yourself, I want you to choose a section of it, a word, a thought, and I want you to pull that word or thought, and I want you to add it to the chat. So I will give you an example. The section that I pulled happen to be at the end, they are also cognitively capable of deeper reflection. So I'm going to put in the chat, deeper reflection. And I just want to see, and the reason why I'm pulling that is because I feel that we have to keep in mind that the educators that we are working with, they're all on their own journeys and path the same way we are, but they are, I love that piece of the quote, that they're able to have that deeper reflection. So we need to figure out how we pull that in or how we build that. So I want you to take that moment. I want you to read this. This really kind of speaks to the development of the teachers. And then I want you to choose an aspect of this quote that resonates with you and drop it into the chat. And if you can do the why it resonates, would also be helpful too. Just a few minutes. Well, yeah, color the interactions, need to be mindful. Yeah, absolutely. Insecurities and worries that absolutely can stagnate. Adults are more likely to be quick to develop those first impressions. Yeah, absolutely. And I think as much as we can keep this in the forefront, is that there's this development that's happening, and there's also this insecurities, this worry that we're not doing a good job right now, right? It's hard for people to feel like it. And so we as coaches, we also have a first impression that we're making, right? As we're interacting with our teachers. And we have to be honest, sometimes our first impressions are not always based on real observation, right? It's just what we notice or what we see they're doing. And so just knowing that the teachers themselves are also, on the same path as children in the same way. Like there's a way in that they can be worried that we're going to see them not at their best, right? And so how do we think about what our interactions are with them and keep in mind that there's this insecurities and these worries that they have is also important. I don't know if there's anybody who wants to unmute and say anything, but I appreciate you all. I think it's really important that we keep in the forefront that this is what's also happening for adults. And we have to really keep in mind that sometimes our first impression is very much through a biased lens, whether we whether we realize it or not. I always say when I used to walk into classrooms, I'd always go to the block area because I really wanted to see if the block area was being utilized. And when I didn't see girls in the block area, I immediately had an issue. Now that's my bias because I expect the girls to be able to be exposed to it more than, not more than, but as much as the boys, because I know that the boys love to do the building. And so I knew I would already have a little bit of a, how come I'm not seeing the girls? I'm already having a formulation of a thought just because of my own personal bias, right? That I wanted to see. And so trying to be mindful of that, and just being in the space and just being present and looking for that strength as opposed to having my self-talk kind of is an important thing to have. So even when you're on the phone, and I understand you all talk to your teachers, I don't know if you pop into their classrooms in the same way that we're doing. I don't know if you do that. I'm assuming you might. Further on, we'll talk a little bit about what your day looks like. But I think there are moments where we have to be mindful that the adults are defensive too, and we are there to try to be as supportive as we can along the way. So thank you for that. All right, Jarrett, next slide. So again, I said to you, and we've been talking about the strengths-based perspective. You looked at the 5 principles just in general, just to get just a flavor for each of them. In our sessions, we will talk about one at a time and kind of dig in, try some of the techniques out, and also do some talking about what it looks like in practice and see if we can see some examples of what it looks like in practice. All right, next slide for me, Jarrett. For the 9 or so people at the beginning of the session who felt like strength-based approach resonated for them, I'm going to ask if you, one or few of you, would be willing to share with me, and you can use the chat, but I would love to hear your voices. What does the phrase strengths-based approach to coaching, what might that mean? What might that mean to you?
Hi, it's Jen again.
Hi.
I was one of the ones who picked that. The thought that came to mind is starting with the positive. So when we're after observing a teacher and having that post-conference and having the conversation about what we saw, we're starting with the strengths, seeing what they also say is their strength, and then telling them what we see were the positives, and kind of discussing that before going into, any possible changes that could be brought to the lesson that they had done that day. So that's how I see it.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Anybody else?
Hi. For me, it was thinking the opposite. Sometimes we've gone into classrooms and the classrooms is the management is not great. I've had experiences with that. And even though there wasn't a good response maybe to a lot of the curriculum and things that they were supposed to be doing, you still try to find something good out of something that might have not been so good. So that was one of the things I thought about as well. Always trying to find a positive when there is blatantly that it's a difficulty going on.
Yeah. And so definitely there's always a difficulty. I will challenge you all to look for where the success is. Sometimes it's the fact that the person showed up to work. You're here today. I'm so glad that you showed up. Oh, Miss Henry, thank you for showing up. Oh, Miss Henry, even if everything else feels like, okay, we have a starting place. And sometimes that might be the starting place, right? See you show. I'm. You know what? I see you showed up. I see that you have your materials ready. Let's talk about what I'm noticing with those materials, right? So I'm noticing, and I'm saying that so that she can hear. Wow, just showing up is step one, because maybe that's all you're seeing right now, and even that is powerful enough, because then you're starting to begin to build that trust with the person. Because they also know they know what's going on. They may not be able to control and fix it, but they're there. So even starting with that is definitely strengths-based. Inside of powerful interactions, the way in which they formatted it is that you are not really just trying to be nice, but you are looking for some seed of growth. And that's why I said, even showing up is a seed of growth, right? You're starting, oh, I noticed that you did this. Oh, I'm wondering about that. Oh, I noticed that you had such a, positive interaction with Michael. Oh, I noticed that, you just using it in I noticed statements and saying what you see and being really like honing in on a small piece of the interaction that you've noticed so that you can really begin to kind of push on some of what you see and try to stay in the strength before you hit the challenge. And that's hard because it's very easy. Like, oh, I noticed, and I know that you want to get it all in one coaching conversation and you have your reflective cycle of what you need to do. But you sometimes may have to sit with working on the strength before you give them the thing to work on, because maybe they can say, yeah, I was ready today, but you know what? I didn't have all the materials like in the way that I wanted. Sometimes they'll go right into it. And then you say, so what can we do about that? How could I be supportive, or how could your assistant, again, I'm talking face to face, but I don't know if they have two people showing up in a Zoom or, in a Google Classroom meet or things like that. So definitely being able to do that. We're going to take any questions about that. And I see Irene and some other folks have said, leverage the strengths to build on the weakness. Absolutely, Lisa. As much as we can leverage the strength. And when you are noticing, and I'm using certain terminology, it may not feel like your normal speak. You may not normally speak in that way, but it's basically taking what you're observing and seeing what the teacher is doing or talking about and saying, oh, I hear you saying, oh, I noticed that you were doing this, saying that so that you are modeling for them and they can hear you and go, oh, okay, that's what I'm doing. Sometimes they're not even noticing that's what you're doing. I see you took out the time to really listen to Michael and he seemed agitated or he was up and down in the screen. And I noticed that you were able to do that. That helped to calm him down. That's why it's really important. So being really clear in your language of observing and then stating what you're noticing. That's something that needs work and practice. So we're going to watch a little video from the PI book. I don't know if you all have seen this one. Marshall, have they seen this one? Did you say I believe they had? Oh, they have not. Oh man, you on mute, man.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do believe we did show this clip like in last year, but anyway, it's fine.
Is it okay?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. All right. So we'll look at Shantae and Irene. We'll kind of pick it apart. We have the QR code. If you don't want to watch it with us and you want to watch it on your own, if you have your phone and you open up to camera, you can zoom in on that QR code and it actually will open up and you can watch it yourself. You don't have to do it. We are going to play it, but we do that because sometimes it lags. Okay, so I'm just saying, be patient with it. It's only 2 to 3 minutes, but if it's lagging, that gets annoying. So you can have an opportunity to watch it on your own. Thank you, Jared.
In a nice quiet space.
Mm-hmm.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. It's a nice day going on in our classroom. I guess it's the weather too. It's been helping.
Oh,
beautiful weather outside.
Spring has sprung.
It has.
Which is wonderful.
Yes.
I know yesterday in our staff meeting, we talked about taking a moment to switch gears and shift from being with children and being with adults. We can both take a moment, take a deep breath. So I was in your classroom today and I noticed you and Ethan playing letter bingo.
Yes. He's been all about bingo this week. The shape bingo, the letter bingo. He's been very excited about it.
You were both really enjoying yourself.
We were.
I also noticed he was leading the game.
He actually wanted to put himself in that position. He's like, I want to be the caller, Miss. I said, that's fine.
You made a decision to let Ethan be the caller.
Yes.
What made you go there?
I feel like it's really important for the kids to know that, yes, we are their teachers, but I can take a step back and let him have a role. As you can tell from our interaction, he really appreciated that. I feel like doing that more often with the kids will help build their self-esteem.
So in making that decision, you chose to empower him.
Yes, and I think he felt great about it.
By letting him lead and giving him the opportunity to have space, I feel like you really learned a lot about him.
Yes, I did.
In just those 5 or 10 minutes of playing that game.
I did. I feel like it's made our relationship closer because it's always so busy in the classroom, but when you actually have a chance to sit down with the child and allow them to show you what they know, I think that's the best feeling. It's very positive and rewarding.
It was powerful for him and for you.
Yes, it was.
If we wrote down all of the things you noticed
Yes.
that Ethan showed you today, we would come up with a great anecdotal note that would support your assessment of him. I have some pictures that might help us. Look at how he's looking at you and you looking back at him. For me, that was the connect.
We had a lot of connections.
So tell me about objectives that you might see just looking at the picture.
He's learning his letters, recalling information. He's making connections from past experience because we have played bingo before.
He's following rules.
Yes, he is.
That's a big one for 3-year-olds.
That is a big one.
And even though there's only one player, I saw an element of turn taking.
Yes.
It might not be something that we implicitly teach, but we can model it for children.
We do it so often and we don't even think about it.
Well, you do think about it though. So make sure you record that so you can remember it later. Sometimes those details are hard to remember
Yes.
later on when you're putting in data. And I can send you some of the pictures if you want to upload that to his portfolio.
Thank you. I would love that.
Great.
Tell me what you saw. What did you notice about their interactions?
The interaction was very positive.
Mm-hmm.
What I noticed.
How do you know that it was?
Because she was not only pointing out the great things that she saw, she was encouraging the teacher to have the good things too.
Okay.
That's my interpretation.
Absolutely. Somebody else. Tell me what else. What else did you saw? What else did you see? Yes.
I thought it was very calming. I mean, the teacher has a very calming voice. I mean, not the teacher, the coach, I'm sorry. And the teacher, it seemed like they had a good relationship just from the conversation. So it was very like a peaceful coaching session.
Yep. They have a relationship, it seems, right? And the coach also made reference to, I see what you're doing today with him, which might have been different than what she saw her do with that child before, right? Without us even knowing that there's some history, this coach definitely has seen interactions with this teacher and that particular child. And she started to say, I see today you let him lead, right? And that's important. Being able to connect your conversations with your coaches, it's really important. I know we go from one goal, then we set another goal, and then they work on that, and then we start something else. But being able to go back and reflect back on something you talked about before is really powerful. What else did you notice about, what else did you notice? I see some folks with some wondering. I wonder how long they've been working together. Any noticings or wonderings? What else about the wonderings? Anybody see how she went from what I saw you do today and how is it connected to your objectives? Do you see how she quickly, it was like in a sentence, she moved from, here's what I'm seeing you do. How is that connected to what you're supposed to be doing? Right? It's a slight, just your objectives. And maybe you don't use the terminology objectives, but you had a pre-planning conversation with them in which you talked about what you were going to potentially see in your planning conference. Then you actually have the visit with them, and you may see what you said you were planning, but even if you didn't, you see something. And then you hone in on what you noticed, and how's that connected to what you're doing? What's the bigger scope of this work? Is it connected to their social emotional learning? Is it connected to some of the things that they're doing with teapots? That's what you want to that's what you want to start tapping into, where you normally support them around the strategies that they need or the challenging behavior. If you know there's something that they can do, and in that planning conference that you have with them, they talk about, oh, I'm going to be doing a morning meeting with them. And maybe the morning meeting is about feelings or something like that. Then you start thinking about ways to have your resources to support, because you don't know what's going to show up. But then when you have your visit and then your post-conference, you could then begin to kind of unpack and say, oh, how's that connected to, see, I noticed you did this. Is that connected to some of the work that we've been talking about with teapots? Right? So being able to really start to thread for them, even though they may not be making those connections. Does that make sense? Okay. I want you to just take a moment before we move on. And I want you to think about a coaching conversation that you have had recently. And I want you to think about, where was it? What was the space like, the environment? You see in this environment, obviously they're having a face-to-face. We can't have a face-to-face. But there was a moment at the beginning where they centered themselves and they transitioned from being in the classroom. And we know everybody's chaotic at home right now, and we might be on the phone. How do we, take that moment to center? Right. So I want you to think about what that coaching discussion sounded like. And if there was, what did it look like? What did it sound like that you had? If anybody's willing to share, I'm asking you to take a risk, be a little bit vulnerable, if you would. Anybody willing? If you had a coaching conversation, who's had a coaching conversation within the last week? Show me with the reaction. Anybody had a coaching conversation within the last week? Okay.
I'll share since no one else is sharing.
Thank you for taking.
I'm sorry.
I said, thank you for taking the risk.
It is a risk. So this week I didn't really have coaching sessions because it was more observations of kids. Mm-hmm. So this could be before the winter break. So the question is, what did it look like?
Yeah.
Okay. So we were tasked to do checklists with the teachers, these CEFL checklists. So I did one of them, which was, I pre-conference with the teacher to, just explain to her the look fors and, what I'm expecting to see. But I also explained I didn't want her to change her whole schedule for me because, these schedules, they work hard on these lessons plans to get what they need to get in. And they have obviously, I can't think of the word, sorry. They, their principals and VPs are telling them what to do. So,
yep.
Okay. So, I observed the classroom, I observed the whole hour and some change. And when I met with her, I started with, tell me how you thought today went. What did you see as some of the strengths? And how are you feeling about today? you know, they immediately, every teacher who I've asked that question to always will focus in on the problems with, we use WebEx as our platform. So, I mean, probably 8 out of 10 times they always say, oh, well, actually today was decent for, you know, the internet issues. And then, you know, she went into what she thought was positive. I agreed with her, you know, some of the work she had done that day to basically meet the checklist. And I'm not saying that she doesn't do this other days also, but this particular day she did, you know, do what I kind of asked. I talked about the strengths with her. And then I also talked about one of the things she needs to work on is she doesn't give the children enough time to talk or to respond. She just kind of throws questions at them. So they were talking about problem solving and it was like, oh, what is problem solving? And then nobody would answer. And then she'd go to the next question or she'd answer it for them. So, you know, I was then responsible as the coach to basically talk about, you know, one of the things that needs to be worked on is giving the children time. I know that you're trying to get a lot of information out in this short period of time or in this short lesson. However, we really need the child's input as well. You know, I mean, that was basically it. Then we talked about what our goals would be moving forward and how we'll meet again prior to the next observation to kind of review and talk about what we're going to be working on, just because I'm not observing her weekly or even potentially monthly. So, you know, so it was a comfortable conversation. It went well. She was receptive, which she's actually one of the teachers that I've struggled with being receptive. She always has an answer for everything. And she always combats you. But I don't know, this particular time, she wasn't combative and she was kind of willing to hear me. I haven't seen her since, so I don't know if she's going to take anything I said, but even in her classroom last school year, she doesn't give the children time. She's just really trying to get everything out. So I think that's going to be one of our working pieces. And I know the teacher coach is working with her as well on that. So
Sure. Good. Thank you for that. Do you have a sense what made her be more receptive this time? Do you know?
Well, I was being observed for my supervisor. So I don't know if, because my supervisor was on the call, that she had a change of tune, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, I mean, honestly, I don't know how, it will be interesting to see, you know, but yeah, I think, I don't know if it was anything I did, because she is like with the teacher coach to her staff members every time something's brought to her attention, you know.
Okay.
So.
Well, thank you for sharing. I think what I am trying to understand is what your coaching conversations look like in general before I actually offer any ideas. But I also want you to think about if there are ways, and this is for everyone, if there are ways that you saw something in the coaching conversation. And the reason why I shared it is Irene, the coach, offers a lot of I noticed statements. And so I noticed and I wonder are really powerful statements for you as you observe. And not only I noticed, but why what I noticed matters. So she talked about, I noticed you let him lead. And by letting him lead, it empowered him and gave him a voice. And so when you practice that, you also need to be thinking why that's important. So if you're going to observe that, what the teacher is doing, I noticed that. Also think about why that's important so that you give them both parts of that conversation. Okay. Right. Jared, we're going to, let's move to, time is so against us. I hate time. Can you move to the next slide for me? And part of what we tried to do is we took your PERT log and we created a coaching visual for your log. At least this is how we make sense of it. And it's also your coaching log or visual is the reflective cycle. right? It is that process, right? And so you start with that planning conference. And then from that planning conference, that's the pre-conversation, right? That's the, I'm going to be, that's when you call them up. And again, I'm using terms that may not match you. So you'll let me know. I don't, sometimes you call them, sometimes you have a Zoom chat or a WebEx chat with them, but somehow or another you plan to meet, they know you're coming and you're hearing what they're going to be working on, right? Then there's the visit. And I'm not so sure about what the visit looks like, but you either are observing or you, I guess, pop in and get to see. And then there's some noticings and wonderings that you make. And then you typically have very little time. If it was a face-to-face, there's usually nap time and you talk to them and all that kind of stuff. But because there's not, I don't know when you are making the time for that post-visit conference. And then there's some goal setting. So that is the cycle. And then there are questions that obviously you have to get comfortable with. But I would say the strengths-based approach lives within your cycle in multiple places. And so what we wanted to do is have you, and we are going to do this, we're going to have you go into something called a Jamboard. And we're going to ask you to, well, first we'll get the screen ready. And you'll see that there is a link that's in the chat. You're going to click on that link. It's going to open up to another screen. And I want you to think about your general coaching activities, all of the little details of the things that you do. And on the left-hand side, and Carissa, do you want to go through this for them?
Sure.
Sure.
So if you see the left-hand side, there are all these tools. And what we're going to ask is, so everyone has, I love sticky notes as a coach. I use them a lot. So you can choose a sticky note, and we'd like you to put on sticky notes things that you do on a typical day. So when I was a coach in high school, what I did every day was find resources for teachers based on one of my planning meetings or a follow-up meetings. So I'm going to open the sticky note, click on the sticky note, and then a window should pop up. And then I will save. And it should pop up for all of you in a second. And I can also move it.
So there are about 26 or 7 of us in the room. So I am hoping to see at least 26 or 7 Post-its fill this page. So that's 1 Post-it per person. That's not a big lift. And so basically, we want you to click on the sticky note. It'll open, you'll type in something that you do, and then drop it on the page. It's going to drop in small, but we can make it big. We can move it around. You can even change the color. All right. Oh, yes. Thank you. Talk about the why. We're going to do this in 2 minutes because time is not my friend.
Andrew, if you can wait a few more minutes, I'll make lunch. Oh, okay.
Yes, discuss strategies.
Oh, sorry, wrong time.
And if you don't see your Post-it, it could be nestled under somebody else's Post-it. So just so you know. All the things that you do. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, what are we clicking on? I'm trying to find
So the first thing you do,
okay.
Yep, inside of the chat, you click on the link That opens up the Jamboard. It's a Google product. And then once you're in the Jamboard, there's the little thing that looks like a notepad. You click on that and it's going to open, and then you type into it. And then once you hit save, it'll save onto the page.
Okay.
Okay. We like to give you some new tools to play around with also. And if you don't have it on sticky, it's fine. If you just use the text box, that's fine too. Oh, sorry. That's time. Nice. Give you the last 30 seconds. Nice. Mm-hmm. Nice. And so as we are looking at all of these coaching activities, I want you to think about where we start to identify areas that we can become more strengths-based. Can we do it inside of the reflective questioning? Absolutely. Can we do it once we have a visit and then reflect on the visit? Absolutely. Right. So as you think about your coaching cycle and you think about the activities that you engage in, start to think about where you can find the strength and how you can speak to that. I noticed when we were talking last week about a particular child, you were able to, I noticed that you have more of an interaction with them this week. I noticed that he seemed more at ease and you seemed more at ease with them, right? Then let them go ahead, right? So where we can add the strengths-based language intentionally is what we want to be doing. And there are tons of things that you all are doing. Especially connected to the SEL and especially connected to the things that hem them up and get them stuck, where they then want to move and say, well, no, it may need more supports, or we might need to start a referral process. We want to be able to coach them enough along so that we don't have referrals increasing, right? We want to be able to feel like we're giving them some strategies and we're giving them some supports. So starting with the strength and building the relationship, I think will be helpful to us. Thank you for all of these. These will go into our handout folder. We'll have a folder with all of our stuff in it. And so one, we wanted you to have an opportunity to play with the Jamboard if you're not familiar with it. It's a nice, simple thing. It's something you can use. It's a free extension inside of Google. Doesn't cost you anything. And you can use it with your teachers. You can use it when if you all are offering PDs or doing some work, even with each other. Any questions about that? Any questions? And this helps us to get a sense of what your work looks like so that as we plan forward, we're able to hone in on how we connect the powerful interaction strategies to the work that you do. So this is really helpful for us also. Okay. Jack, can you go to the next slide for me? And for those of you who are still in the Jamboard, thank you. We will make sure to send it to you all, or at least put it in the folder. So our bridge to practice, and when we sent you the when Marshall sent the pre-session email, there was probably a PDF of a few pages. And in that PDF, there are like pages 22 to 27, and it's coaching with powerful interactions. It's an excerpt. We want you to read over that excerpt, and on your PERT log, I know that you'll be doing coaching all throughout. Choose one or two folks that you are working with, and I want you to practice I notice, and I wonder, and I feel statements. So you're going to be observing, you're going to be doing what you normally do in your reflective cycle. And as you're doing it, you're going to be intentional about practicing. Gee, I noticed this. I noticed it and it was important, right? And I need you to write that down. Like, I need you to kind of capture what you say, because we have to practice this. And if you wonder about something that the teacher is doing, and usually the wondering is connected to, I don't want to say, the wondering is usually connected to something that they do that is probably not aligned to what you were expecting them to do, right? So I wonder why, I'm trying to think of an example that would make sense. I wonder why we started with reading the story, I don't know, Sophie's Recess, and then we moved to this other story and the kids didn't have a chance to really engage with that. I'm wondering about that. I mean, they might feel a little disjointed, that they were talking about one thing and now we're moved on to something else and there was no closure. So instead of saying I didn't see any closure, I'm wondering why we did that. Maybe the teacher has a reason why they did that, right? We're not sure. So I want you to write down 2 I noticed statements. I want you to write down 2 I wonder statements. And the I feel statement really helps you to help them see what's going on. Gee, I feel it would be really helpful if, right? If you were able to kind of continue to leave space for kids to talk a little more, right? And you have to think about the relationships that you have with your teachers to decide who you're going to use what with for right now, until it becomes comfortable enough for you to be using it. So you have to challenge yourself to use it with everybody, but some folks are going to be more receptive and they're going to go, what is she talking about? Right? And it's going to feel, you know, unnatural, unless that's how you normally speak, right? So you are going to have to practice that, right? Ah, yes. I wonder why you decided not to use the visuals to kind of review the rules. They're little, they need to see, you know. I wonder if we could have played the music a little longer so they could have their dance party. You see, they were fidgety, right? Right? There's no way to keep them engaged. I think we should definitely, and again, you try to hold back and not impose yourself, right? But I'm wondering if we would have done that, if this would have happened. And so you have to give them both parts. I wonder if we did that, if that would help them calm their bodies. I wonder if they had the dance party, if that would have calmed their bodies. Then they're going to respond, right? Okay. Questions about that? Any questions? Are we good with that? We have a month before we see each other again. Try it out with each other, practice it often, and think about where you put these statements in your reflective cycle, right? It seems like it's going to work mostly when you're observing in the class. But you could also, in the planning conference, come up with an I wondering statement. They may say, oh, I want to do this thing. I wonder why. I wonder if that's connected to something that we talked about before, right? So it doesn't mean that it's going to happen only in the classroom visit. It could also happen in the post visit, right? So think about that. And remember, we're going from a strengths base. So even if you see something that's like, oh my God, why'd she do that? You know, it's she's doing the best, or they're doing the best that they can. So find that nugget and exploit that. All right. And then in our next, when we come back together, we're going to share what we did, what we said, our log, things like that. We're going to really talk about those statements. So I'm going to need you to bring, literally scribe down what you said, what you stated, how it landed, all of that. And we'll spend some time on that. Okay. I thank you all for today. We are 2 minutes over. I try not to be over because people's times are important. We have a feedback form. I ask that you fill it out. It does help us to think about how we plan our next session. Again, if you have your phone and you have a few minutes and you can do it now, really would appreciate it. You open your phone to camera and then you use like lean in, and there's a little yellow circle or square actually, and then you can tap it and you'll open, and it'll open up to the Google Doc, and you just can fill it in for us and then we'll get it. If you are on your phone, obviously you can't do it that way. And I think that Carissa has chatted in the chat box. You can click on the link and do it that way. The old school way, it's fine too. So either use your phone or you can use the link. But if you take the 5 minutes, I will say to you that in this particular feedback form, we have a like a pre-survey, and then at the end of our 5 sessions, we'll have a post-survey. So it's a little longer this time. It won't normally be, not that much longer. It's like 4 questions as opposed to, or maybe it's 8 questions as opposed to 4 questions. Okay, so it shouldn't take more than 10 minutes. All right. I thank you so much for you all being present and being here and being with us. I'm so glad I'm able to be with you all now. Coaching is the work that I love. It's my work. It's who I see myself as. We will see you on February 5th. That is the next time that we are together. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day and a good, it's Friday, and a good weekend.
Thank you. Yay. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, everyone.
All right. Take care.
All right. Take care. It's good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Alicia, it's good to see you. I'm going to get you in February.
It's good to see you too.
It really is. And so, Miss Carol. Yes, it's good.